Welcome to this week's episode of the Full Scope Cybercast, Safeguarding the Digital Frontier. I'm your host, Matt Van Pelt, and with me today are Full Scope IT's CTO Dan Walk and Brian Amadeo from Business Development. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Matt.
Hello.
Dan, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Brian, how are you?
Doing fantastic, Matt. Great to see you guys.
All right, yes, always a pleasure. All right, so I guess we'll start with the this week's buzzword, which is network monitoring.
Breaking down the buzzword.
Network monitoring is a critical IT process where networking components like routers, firewalls, servers, and other related devices are monitored for faults and failures. The main aim of network monitoring is to detect and report any anomalies or potential issues that might affect network performance or security. So, what are the steps a company should take in order to get their network monitoring set up? Dan?
Well, network monitoring requires some infrastructure, some servers running somewhere. We typically run these in cloud environments in multiple locations to get a better view of how things are going. And then very often we also need to have some on-site probes, which are just a PC or a virtual machine that is able to check things a little bit closer to the source of what we're actually checking. And what we're looking for is any mission critical servers or switches or routers or firewalls, or even things that are not so mission critical, like printers. You might not consider them mission critical until you absolutely need to print something. And we're just scanning these things all the time to make sure that they're responding properly so that we know something is going wrong before any of the employees or users are confronted with an issue.
So is this a thing that's, not so much on or offline, but does it check in some way?
Well, I've always had this problem with network monitoring where there's no real difference between everything looks fine and the network monitoring is broken. So we tend to check our network monitoring very frequently, and because our network monitoring is used for a larger number of customers, there's always some information coming out from it because of power failures or internet connection issues. So we get like a much more complete view into things than you would see just for network monitoring that would be set up for a single small business.
Cool. Well, thanks.
Is network monitoring something a company can do on their own, or is it something that a IT company like Full Scope helps with?
Certainly companies are free to set up whatever systems they want, and there's a lot of good network monitoring systems out there. But it does require a certain amount of expertise in understanding what you want to monitor and what the value is, and also how to get the alerts to become usable. And really one of the biggest challenges is to understand that you're not getting false positives out of your system. A lot of network monitoring systems will just generate tons and tons and tons of alerts because you may have a slow internet link, or somebody's downloading a big file and it makes some packets get dropped that are irrelevant. And we've tuned our network monitoring to work with these systems and to proactively open tickets, but also to close them as soon as possible if they really don't need to be dealt with, or if the problem resolves itself.
The next question on this list is, how does someone create a response plan? Is that, I wanted to frame it a little better than that, but how does someone create a response plan, Dan?
We have our own response plan as an MSP that we provide to our customers, where we look at service levels for the tickets that are opened automatically by the network monitoring, and very often the issues resolve themselves quickly, or we have proactive systems that will attempt to resolve the systems automatically. Attempt to resolve the problems automatically. And then if none of that can happen and it does need to be worked on by a technician, we open tickets and it goes into our regular ticket processing. And we have all of these systems built to help support our customers. If you were to run your own network monitoring yourself, you'd have to make sure that the network monitoring system had that kind of integration built in. And a lot of the systems even create their own tickets or will work with another ticketing platform that you may already be using.
So it self-generates those?
Yeah, either internally or latched into another system. In the very simple end, they can send emails or SMS alerts. Some of them will even work with apps on a smartphone to generate notifications.
All right. Great. Well, that brings us seamlessly into our tech tip.
Well, if it isn't a tech tip.
This week's tech tip: adopt proactive network monitoring for enhanced security and efficiency. Network threats are unpredictable, but your business response doesn't have to be. Implementing a robust network monitoring system can offer a proactive defense strategy for your IT infrastructure. It allows you to identify potential threats before they can cause harm and provides real-time insight to keep your network performing at its best. So, gentlemen, any more thoughts on this topic?
I'm glad it exists. I'd like to say that much. I mean, this is it's just an interesting point. I have a lot of conversations, obviously, with people, and they believe that they're secure, or they believe they've got an individual in place that sees these things. And the reality is, when we get more into these conversations, they get enough alerts that they become immune to them, and they stop really paying attention unless something's drastically different that day. And I think that's the biggest difference between when I have conversations about somebody with an internal person versus using a fractional MSP or a team or multiple people where there's layers of review or filtering of these notifications. So anyway, that's my 2 cents, that I think a lot of people have a false sense of security because I get I get responses from my firewall or from whatever service they might have in place for this. So get a team to help you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian. So, for more information on how network monitoring can help secure your organization from cybersecurity threats, check out our blog post, What is Network Monitoring and Why is it Important for Business? There will be links posted in the podcast description and also posted on our website.
I want to bring up one more topic while we're on this. So I noticed one of the issues here is the response plan. And there is actually a new law in place that requires any publicly traded company to now have a time limit on their response. So like having a CISO in place or a virtual CIO as a service or something along that line. But yeah, there's actually a regulation now that forces you to respond any cyber vulnerabilities, not vulnerabilities, but any incidents within a certain time frame. So it's also another resource that most organizations don't either realize they need or even have in place. But it's an important one.
Yeah, I read that same. Was that on the brew, Brian? Because I think I read the same thing.
Very well may have been. That's possible.
Yeah, the good old brew. All right,
There's a plug for the IT brew,
Morning
yeah.
Brew newsletter. IT Brew and Tech Brew.
This is the story of the week.
Listen up!
So, this week's story of the week comes to us once again from The Verge. The NYPD is testing drones that broadcast public safety warnings during emergencies. There's a really funny quote from, I can't remember who it is, but somebody said, "The drones are a terrible way to alert New Yorkers, but they are a great way to creep us out." What do you guys think?
Wow. I'm actually for it. I think that this isn't going to be used to like go out and yell at people for spitting on the sidewalk or jaywalking. This is this has been used in other countries where large crowds are gathering and information needs to be given to the large crowds, and you can't move billboards around, and you can't just go around shouting at people with a megaphone from the street level. And I have to say some countries have used them against protesters who are out there protesting legitimately, and that may not be the best use for this technology. But if there were a large fire event, or New York City, the New York City, when the Twin Towers came down, there were a lot of people running around who didn't know which way to go, or where the problem really was, or even why people were running. And to be able to deploy technology like this to get information directly to the people at the site that they need it sounds very powerful to me.
This is. I agree with you, Dan. That'd be a great use case. I think there's always this balance in Big Brother, right? Everybody's concerned about being watched. I was in surveillance for many years, and it's a fine line in a lot of cases. Privacy versus protection.
Well, I definitely think there need to be regulations, and the authorities shouldn't be able to deploy any technology that they have for whatever reason they feel like deploying it. They need to cross a certain threshold to say this is the right time that we can use this, and even though it is a little bit creepy, the value to save people's lives and keep people safe outweighs that this time.
And I mean, as someone that I at least believe I have nothing to hide, part of me always feels like, take the information, use it for good. That's right there is where I don't have as much confidence. Was it Judge Dredd or Demolition Man? Wasn't there remember the movie where that was the first thing that happened? There was constantly drones everywhere, and they would see everybody do something wrong. I think it was a Sylvester Stallone movie, and then it would talk to you, and then all of a sudden, the actual police would be on you, and it was.
I think that was Judge Dredd.
And
because in Demolition Man, there was no crime anymore.
Okay, there you go. So yeah, so I think so it was probably Judge Dredd.
The law.
But that's what I pictured as soon as I heard or read this article.
Right. I always go right to 1984.
Yeah. This all makes really great stories, and we all love scary stories. But that doesn't mean the scary stories should drive the way we live our lives. None of us would ever stay home alone if we watch too many horror movies.
Yeah, I know. I try not to live in fear. Just go do. And this, at least the intention of this article was for emergency response, right? It had nothing to do with surveillance. It was for public announcement. So that's how it's used.
But I do agree. It's it's a little creepy having this floaty thing going around. And it's probably not talking in a robot voice. It's probably some dispatcher in some remote data center or call center screaming at you from this drone. So hopefully at least they have a nice sounding voice.
Right.
So that you
might
don't have
even
to
be
listen to people screaming
could be
at
a
you.
911 operator too, for that matter. Could be, what we're used to. That type of person that can help with, I don't know, de-escalate a situation.
Yeah, they're usually very good at keeping calm in an emergency and sounding calm and reassuring.
Yeah, I will say I would prefer the drones to the robo dogs. That's
Those
a step too far for me, if you ask me.
they're
No,
so
thank you.
weird.
Yeah,
to
robot
look at.
dog
People are just
running
going to be
around
trying to kick
yelling
them
at
over
ya.
all day long.
And
Yeah.
their
Oh,
body
no thanks.
movements are so strange. It's just very, very creepy.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. But I think in general, you're right for emergency broadcasting purposes. I think the drones would be a great thing. Get that information out there and let people know.
what other mechanism do we have that could deploy that fast, right, and get to a situation to actually deliver that information? I can't think of one. I mean, so from that standpoint, it would, especially I think it'd be even maybe emergencies in a highway situation, or or at a large concert event, or
Isn't there an emergency thing that can go out to your phone? Didn't something happen in Hawaii where a bunch of people thought the world was ending or something like that because a thing went out
there's
to
an
their phones?
earthquake, a
volcano
tsunami,
was
or an
erupting or
earthquake
something? I
report.
can't remember what it was.
Yeah, and it was
And it was like a test that accidentally went out to
that
everybody's
guy got
phone.
fired.
That was a few years ago.
Yeah, that individual. I shouldn't say guy,
Again.
individual.
Got to carefully regulate this stuff if we're going to use it.
Yeah, imagine that moment you
Yeah,
realize it just
all
went
right.
out. And you're like, oh
I
no.
know. Oh man, I would just run away. I would run
Yeah.
away.
Well, we have all sorts of systems like that the authorities just have to be very careful about it. I'm sure there's air raid sirens almost everywhere on the planet that just sit there quiet for decades and decades, hoping that they never need to use them.
I mean, that's why we got that at the emergency
Right, and
broadcast
that's why they
system,
test it.
You know, this is only a
Yeah.
test. I mean, you go back to like War of the Worlds with Orson Welles, when everybody thought we were really getting attacked by aliens. It's like, what?
Right.
Where do you?
And you have to
Wow.
test,
I
right?
know that-
You have to know that it's going to work when
Yeah.
you need it to work. So yeah, you have to test.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen that come across TV
No,
in a long time. Radio.
This
Do
all
they not
reminds
use it
me
anymore?
that I feel like I was like the last elementary school class that was required to go out in the hallway and stand in the hallway with our faces to the wall for some sort
right.
of like air raid preparedness thing in case a bomb got
I
dropped.
forgot about the
And,
facing the wall part.
wow.
That's right.
Yeah, and
I did not have to do that.
I don't think they do that. I don't think they do that anymore. I think somebody finally spoke up and said, if a nuclear bomb gets dropped anywhere near the school,
Doesn't matter what you're
Sitting
doing.
at
Doesn't matter where you're
Yeah,
standing.
doesn't matter what you're doing.
Stop terrifying the children.
Did either of you have to
Yeah.
get under your desks at any point? Practice that because of earthquake. I was
See,
in Southern
I think-
California for a bit.
oh, earthquakes. Okay.
Oh yeah, no.
Because they used to do that for the bomb scares in the 60s. But then at some point in the 70s, it turned into going out and standing against the wall. And that just kept going, I think, into the early 80s. And then they finally stopped.
I don't think my children have mentioned. The only thing they do is they still do a fire drill. Like that's still a standard practice, but I don't think they do any other emergency
Yeah.
response
Fire drills
planning.
always make sense.
Right, because that's at least plausible.
Do they still do school bus fire drills? I remember I used to have to jump out the back of the school bus.
Oh, I remember that too.
They would do like school bus fire drills. I always thought those were fun. Jumping out the back
Yeah,
of the bus. Why
I know,
not?
right?
They probably wouldn't allow that now. I mean, how many turned ankles could happen jumping out
My kid,
the
yeah,
back of a school
trying
bus?
to teach you to prepare, but now you got hurt, so someone's going to sue you. Yeah, my children actually have always. We've always either had to drive them or they're driving themselves at this point. So they never went through the
Oh, okay.
school bus scenario. So I don't know if they still do that.
Well, hopefully we all just stay safe.
That's the plan.
Well,
All right,
to tie it back into the drones, we were all okay in school when there was a PA system and any of these drills or anything happened and principal's voice was blaring over the PA telling us how to stay safe or practice to stay safe. So I don't think that the drones are really that much different.
They just needed a marketing spin. They just needed to call it a mobile PA system. As soon as we ever heard drone, we all went to
There you go.
Ooh, no, they're watching me. Yeah, they just needed a better marketing spin.
Right, mobile PAs. I like that. Might have something there, Brian. You got to contact whoever's working on this in the city.
Air capable mobile PA. It's an acronym in there somewhere.
Yeah, I can see the ads now. You cut from some kids in class with the principal telling them it's a fire drill over to the drones telling people what to do to stay safe.
Especially actually if they could
Nice and
lead
friendly.
you.
Nice.
Like if there was actually a best way to go, maybe to find some kind of protection. I mean, that's
I saw a video from Ukraine. It was very tragic. This couple was ambushed, and the Ukrainian soldiers knew that there were snipers nearby, and they flew a drone with a sign that said "Follow me" in Ukrainian, and the woman followed the drone to safety. She thought her husband was dead. Unfortunately, he was just unconscious, and he was saved later, from what I understand. But they did use the drone like that.
that's interesting. Yeah. So see, good stuff
Great.
there.
There you go. And maybe we should end on that positive note, gentlemen, unless you have any further thoughts. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this week's edition of the Full Scope Cybercast, Safeguarding the Digital Frontier. We'll be back next week with another episode, so until then, stay behind your firewall.